So amongst my scientific meditation programs, I have 3 programs that are based around pranayama. And while they do have a meditative component to them, especially during the time period in which you are holding your breath, they are focused around the energetic use of the breath. And they've already become some of the most popular and downloaded of the recordings. So I wanted to make sure that I did a special video based on just on these breathing programs. They are all different from one another, but they share some things in common. So I think I can talk about them basically all as one unit. The three I call deep pranayama, fast pranayama, and 1-4-2 pranayama. Now I've been doing breath exercises for over 30 years. I first encountered them through the teachings of Aleister Crowley's AA, and since then have studied them with yogis and other breath instructors. But the key essence of the breathing practices that I want to share with you are really a complete breath. That's the most important part. And by that I mean a breath in which you utilize your diaphragm, breathing into the very lower part of your stomach, opening up the back part of your chest, and then breathing all the way up to the top of your chest, to the point where you almost feel a little bit of pressure in your nasal cavity. Not to the point where it feels painful in any way, but just to the point where you know that you've taken in a very complete breath of air. And that's really key to the access to the energetic components of these 3 recordings. So the difference between them, the deep meditation recording is basically a 5-second in breath, very complete, with a 5-second out breath. And you do that for 27 breaths, and then you hold your breath at the end of that period for as long as you feel like you comfortably can. And there's a 2-minute silence built in at that point where you could hold your breath, and you could hold your breath for 2 minutes. It's definitely possible and not in any way harmful, especially after you've been breathing in as deeply as you've just been breathing in. Most people probably wouldn't do that. So in between those the long hold of your breath and the next cycle, you can take a few regular breaths, or you can take a second deep breath in and hold it a second time during that time period. Either one of those is a valuable thing to explore. And while you're doing that, you're going to have some pretty profound energy phenomena happening inside of you as a result of the work that you've put in, if you do what I'm going to tell you to do here. But the most important part is that deep, full breath. The fast pranayama is very similar, except that instead of you doing a long, slow breath in, you do a fast breath in and a fast breath out. And the breath in and the breath out are, the breath in is slightly longer than the breath out. Now, there's a number of forms of this within yoga traditions. Usually they're a bit faster than what I'm suggesting, but my predilection, my desire for you is to have more oxygen rather than less, and those other ones tend towards actually depriving you of oxygen rather than increasing it. So in both of those breathing exercises, I want you to concentrate more on the in-breath than the out-breath in both cases. In a lot of Kapalabhati and Bhastrika breaths, they concentrate more on the out-breath than the in-breath. And I find that that's less useful for my particular purposes, which is to awaken your inner energies and begin to move them through you and sort of break through some of the blockages that we all have inside of our sort of inner instrument. And both of those breathing techniques are very powerful at doing this. So the main thing to realize is that you're trying to breathe in as much air as possible during that time period that you're breathing in, and then you're just sort of releasing it calmly back out, and then breathing in as much as you possibly can again. And at the end of a number of breaths, I believe it's 108 breaths, the fast pranayama again has a long hold. The 1-4-2 pranayama has some deep pranayama built into it, and then moves into a few cycles of 1-4-2 pranayama, which is basically in this case it's a 6-second in breath, a 24-second hold, and a 12-second out breath. And during that hold period, again, you're going to be in a meditative, concentrative state. And in fact, throughout all of them, you can be utilizing a mantra if you want to, but particularly during the time period when you're holding your breath, it's a good idea to utilize a mantra. And I'll get a little bit more into that in a moment. So during the segments in which you're holding your breath, there are 3 locks that are utilized in yoga, and I would like you to use them, but I would like you to use them in a very gentle way. Very often these locks are taught in a fairly extreme way in which you're really pulling on your musculature, and I want you to just do it just with the slightest bit of muscular contraction, so that you're maintaining as much as possible a totally relaxed state of consciousness. Throughout these things, I want you to be as relaxed as possible, other than the muscles that are necessary to engage the breathing process. So the Mula Bandha is the first lock, and essentially that is just you're pulling. It's like a Kegel, if you're familiar with that, or alternately you can think of it as trying to hold in your bladder and also holding in your sphincter of your anus. Neither of those is quite correct, but it's good enough for our purposes. You basically want to be pulling on those perennial muscles, the muscles in between those 2 spaces, and sort of creating a locked basis at the bottom of your body. Very simple to do, and like I said, you just need to do it in a very slight and gentle way. The same thing with the Uddiyana Bandha, which is the stomach lock, in which very often you'll see yogis like totally pulling in their stomach to the point where their entire rib cage is like hanging over their stomach, and you do not need to do that at all. You just need to gently hold on to the breath and sort of push it into the spinal area. And finally, the Jalandhara Bandha, which is the throat lock. Again, very gently, you just want to sort of close off this area. Now, this one is actually extreme. The Jalandhara Bandha, the throat lock, is very useful, particularly if you're starting to feel somewhat lightheaded while you're doing these exercises. If you engage that lock slightly and consciously focus upon pushing the energy that's developing down into your torso rather than letting it be up in your head, you'll find that lightheadedness can go away pretty easily. The 3 locks, the way I want you to utilize them is as you're doing your final breath, meaning the one that you're going to hold in, you draw in the breath, and as you're drawing it in, allow the Mula Bandha, the basic, the floor bandha to start to engage. So that and so you're bringing the breath down to that area and pushing it in, and then once it has come in, once you've filled up, at that point you use the Uddiyana Bandha, and you push your abdomen slightly inward, so that breath energy that you've brought down to your base is then compressed into your stomach area and into your spine. And then the Jalandhara Bandha is just simply there to make a container of all of that energy. And once you've done this a few times, you can actually notice that if you utilize this throat bond and then let go of it, you can feel the energy actually flow up into your head very powerfully from you letting go of that bandha. So, and that's another choice. You may want to allow that to happen if you want to, but it can also cause some lightheadedness. So, just be aware of that as a component of it. And other than that, just be aware that these breathing exercises are transformative, and they are fairly vigorous in your physiology and in your psychology, and they can result in fairly profound experiences, both psychologically and physiologically. So if you have heart problems or breathing problems or anything high blood pressure, anything that might be irritated by something like this, you should probably consult a physician and have them watch this video with you and see if they think it's a good idea for you to be engaging in this sort of activity. But for most people, they're actually extremely healthful. They'll increase the amount of energy that you have, to handle life's tasks, and calm you down incredibly well as fill you with bliss, and quite transformative experiences as well once you get into the longer uses of them. So I hope that you enjoy them.